All right, we're going to start off with Georgia, Alabama. And I want to hit you with a couple of different stats off the top here. I have tweeted them out, but I want you guys to pay attention to them. Georgia and Alabama have played 120 minutes in the past 11 months. 60 minutes plus overtime, so a little bit over 120 minutes, but not with the clock running in overtime, plus 60 minutes on Saturday. During the time when the clock has been running, Georgia has either led or been tied for 119 of those minutes. They ended up losing both games. Also, they led or were tied for every play of overtime except for the final play of overtime as well. Why does that happen? How is it that Georgia, other than the fact that Georgia's all the time, how is it that they can be so even with Alabama and yet lose at the crucible moment and lose in such excruciating fashion? In the national title game, they beat Jalen Hurts, and Tua came in and ignited his Heisman Trophy campaign over the next year, but he ignited it starting then. And then Tua gets knocked out of the game, and Georgia brings and Alabama brings in Jalen Hurts and rolls through Georgia, even though they're down 7 points, scoring 2 touchdowns in the final 7 minutes or so. So let me break it down for you. First of all, I think that Georgia fans, rather than be focused on Alabama right now, should be focused on another game that mattered more so this year. If I'm Georgia and I'm looking back at our season, I'm much more troubled by what happened against LSU than I am by what happened against Alabama. I think Alabama's better than Georgia. I think Jake Fromm played over his head. I thought he played extraordinarily well. Georgia getting up 28-14 was, I believe, Georgia playing flawless football. Okay? So, within that context, the question that I have is, how has Georgia not shown up for at least one game every year during Kirby Smart's tenure so far? Georgia got beat by 31 by Ole Miss in year one in a game that I believe they were the favorite in. They got beat by 23 last year by Auburn, and they got beat by LSU by 36-16 this year. If Georgia beats LSU or keeps it close against LSU, then there isn't the same outrage, I don't think, about what happens against Alabama. I think the rage is misguided for Georgia fans. I think it should be directed more at the performance we saw against LSU. Give up 475 yards, allow LSU to rush for 250. That's the game that, to me, is an aberrant one. Having said that, I think Kirby Smart's decision to go for it on 4th and 11 is one of the worst decisions that I have ever seen in a crucible moment from a coach, given the probabilities, the circumstances, and everything else. Taking a risk is fine. Taking an irrational risk that is self-evident to everybody that is on the field is not. And let me explain exactly what I mean by that. It's 4th and 11. 4th and 11 is a low probability of success regardless of the play. Even if you had Jake Fromm and your offense out there, the majority of the time you are not going to convert 4th and 11. 4th and 11 when you trot out Justin Fields, who is not ordinarily on your punt team, is the equivalent of screaming, "Hey, y'all, we're going to fake it now." Once you make the decision to trot out Justin Fields onto the field, everybody out there can see that they are going to run that play. Everybody. So at that point in time, you got an audible, or you're basically saying, we'd rather go 4th and 11 with Justin Fields than we would 4th and 11 with Jake Fromm. Given the circumstances, you have to punt the football there and make Alabama drive. Because Alabama, we know, has had a woeful and woebegone history of making field goals. You've got Jalen Hurts on the field. Make him go the length of the field and beat you, or make Alabama make a field goal to beat you. Instead, when you get stuffed like they did on that play when Alabama is in punt safe and knows exactly what they're going to do, because guess what? Justin Fields hasn't thrown the ball hardly all year. There's no uncertainty there. You don't have the element of surprise. There's no artifice. There's no trickeration. You're running a poor offensive set against Alabama's defense. It was just not an intelligent play call by Kirby Smart. And basically what it meant to me was Kirby Smart is starting to acknowledge at that point, we aren't as good as Alabama. It's like when a team goes for two when they tie a game up late rather than kick extra points. Effectively, what you're saying when you go for two is, I don't believe my team is as good as the other team. I want to end it right here. That's what I see a lot of times. When Maryland goes for two against Ohio State. When the Titans went for two against the Chargers. Now, that might be true. They might be the inferior team. But if you're Georgia and you've played Alabama evenly for 119 out of 120 games, why in the world would you make that decision? It's nonsensical to me. I don't understand it. I don't comprehend it. It is, I think, mismanagement of the highest magnitude. It's coaching malpractice. And it cost Georgia not only the SEC championship, but also, I believe, a spot in the playoff. Because it would have been a tougher argument, I believe, to make that Georgia didn't belong in the playoff if they'd taken the game to overtime again against Alabama. I think a lot of people would have sat back and said, well, they lost one game in regulation and they lost one game in overtime. I think it would have helped them out a little bit more in terms of having a chance to make the playoff. Georgia blew it. In the crucible moment, Kirby Smart made a bad decision. I think a big part of it is that Justin Fields, Georgia is so concerned about him transferring that they've wasted offensive plays with him all year. The offense has done nothing substantial with Justin Fields on the game, on the field, in difficult and important moments. And it's basically Kirby Smart saying over and over again, please don't transfer Justin Fields. I don't think you can run a program like that because Jake Fromm looks like a first-round quarterback. Justin Fields is nowhere near as good as him. And I think the reason they had that play there, and I think the reason they ran it, is because Kirby Smart is afraid that Justin Fields is going to transfer. And my answer to that would be, so what? The reason why you bring in a multitude of challenging players is to have them compete. There's something about the quarterback position that turns otherwise intelligent coaches into imbeciles. Let them compete. The best man wins the job. Jake Fromm is infinitely better than Justin Fields. Maybe Justin Fields as a junior will be different. But in the meantime, you've got a first-round quarterback. Fromm is a prototypical pocket passing stud who will, if he continues to evolve next year, be a first-round quarterback. And that's if he leaves early. He might still have 2 years left because everybody seems to love staying in Athens. So why in the world would you be trying to keep Justin Fields happy when Jake Fromm is clearly the better quarterback? It doesn't make any sense to me. Georgia snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Fromm was phenomenal